Yep. Chapter 18. Second star to the fright. Barry sank deeper into the black water. It choked him and clogged up his throat. Panic gripped his heart and squeezed it tight. His body went rigid with fear. The water was opaque, almost black. Anything could be lurking down there, including that shadowy creature with the razor-sharp teeth. The hook had distracted him. But for how long? He gulped for oxygen, but only swallowed more salt water. It filled his lungs, bloating them. He couldn't tell which way was up. He thrashed around helplessly and started to black out. But then lightning pulsed overhead and helped to orient him. He swam toward the light, fighting against the churning water, pumping his arms and struggling toward the surface. He swam harder and kicked his feet, propelling himself upward. Right when his lungs were burning and starting to convulse, he burst through the surface and gulped down air, which tasted sweeter than any candy. He flailed around until he spotted the lights along the shoreline, and then he swam for it. Waves slapped at his face. He sputtered but had no choice but to keep swimming. The only other option was to drown. He glanced back. Behind him, the Jolly Roger continued to sail away, off toward the strange place from the map, the place where you never grow up. The ship bobbed and crested the waves, cutting through them like they were butter. Candlelight flickered in the captain's cabin. He could see Captain Hook's silhouette framed in the window. Barry felt a jolt of fear and dragged his gaze away. He'd escaped from the ship just in time. Now he could grow up and join his friends in junior high in the fall, and eventually in high school like Rita. He didn't care if it involved algebra and SAT prep classes, as long as he got to keep his friends. That was all that mattered. He'd do 1,000,000 math problems to keep Michael and John in his life. That thought kept Barry going, even as his arms burned from swimming and fighting against the waves. He finally reached the shore, climbing out and dragging himself onto the rocky beach. His legs wobbled as he stepped onto the pebbles. It felt like he was still out at sea, rocking on the pirate ship, even though he was standing on dry land. He climbed up the embankment and clambered into the sidewalk, dripping a trail of water behind him. The marina was mostly deserted now. It was late. A thin sliver of moon hung in the dark sky. He expected Michael and John to burst out of hiding and greet him. Now that he was safe, he was excited to recount his adventures battling Captain Hook. It was like one of their video games, except this was real. He looked for Rita's car, which should be idling by the side of the road. She'd be annoyed that he was late, but mostly relieved that he was okay. Not because she cared about him, but because their parents would definitely ground her if she lost her brother at the marina. The last thing she wanted was to get grounded and not be able to smooch Todd. But there were no signs of Michael and John, or Rita in her car, which was easy to spot due to its bright blue paint. In fact, the whole marina was eerily deserted. Street lamps shone down.
I want more cookies.
You want more cookies?
Yeah.
Okay. Greeting pools of light. The streets were empty. The shops were all closed. How long was I on that ship? Barry racked his brain. He couldn't be sure, but it wasn't more than 2 hours, right? Michael! John! Barry called, searching the marina. I made it! Our plan worked! You can come out now! But still nothing. Where did they go? He scanned the area again for any sign of his friends. Then he tried again. Hey! I'm right here! You can come out now!
My fishing rod.
Oh.
I'm looking my fishing rod.
You're looking for your fishing rod?
Yeah.
I think it's over there, sweetie.
It's over there?
Yeah. Suddenly, a dark shadow fell over him. Kid, what are you doing out here? Barry whipped around, expecting Captain Hook, but his eyes fell on a security guard. He breathed a sigh of relief. This was a different guard from the one who'd been patrolling the marina earlier. He was tall and skinny with a bushy mustache and a pirate's baseball cap. "Hey, kid, the museum's closed," the guard said, glowering at him. "You can't be out here, especially in this storm." Overhead, the sky crackled and rumbled with high lightning and thunder. "Sir, I'm lost, and my ride isn't here for some reason," Barry said. "I need you to help me get home." "Let's check the living room, okay, sweetie?" The guard looked suspicious for a moment, but then he softened. "Okay, kiddo, what's your parents' number?" Barry recited their numbers by heart and waited while the guard tried them. "I was probably just on the ship longer than I realized," he thought. He had lost consciousness after all. Most likely Rita had taken Michael and John home before they missed their curfew. She'd come back and get him, but Barry was freezing and soaking wet. He didn't want to wait for her. He wanted to go home now. Nothing sounded better right now than his own bed. The guard waited while the phone rang. Then he lowered it from his ear. "Kid, there's no answer at these numbers," the guard said, disconnecting the second call. "Look, I'm not falling for this prank again." "What is it, sweetie?" "I think I told you it's in the living room." "Sir, it's not a prank," Barry stammered. "I swear, I'm really lost. The storm probably messed up the phones. Look, please give me a ride home." The sky was still thick with clouds. Lightning pulsed, illuminating the bay at random intervals, while thunder rocked the ground. Wisps of rain pelted the marina, whipped up by the wind. The guard narrowed his eyes. For a second, Barry thought he was going to tell him to get lost, but then he softened. "Fine, let's go," he said, leading Barry to the parking lot. They piled into his patrol car, which wasn't very impressive. Barry watched as the lights of the bay faded out of sight, as the car wound through their quaint town heading for his home. But before they vanished, he could have sworn that in a flash of lightning, he spotted the Jolly Roger bobbing in the distance, heading for the open ocean. But in the blink of an eye, the ship was gone, as if it had vanished from this world altogether. "You found it?"
Yeah, I found it.
A few minutes later and several turns later, the guard pulled into the cul-de-sac and around to the front of Barry's house. The porch light was on, welcoming him home. "Is this it?" the guard asked, tipping his hat toward the front door. "Yes, sir," Barry said, reaching for the door handle. "Thanks for the ride." "Don't mention it," the guard said with a stiff nod. "Just be more careful, especially when there's a storm brewing. Anything could have happened to you." The marina can be a dangerous place for lost boys. We had a kid go missing some years ago. Terrible tragedy. You have no idea, Barry thought, remembering Captain Hook and the strange creature in the water. But he knew better than to mention any of that. Nobody would ever believe him. All right. It's gone. Did Captain Hook take it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you better go find it. Except for Michael and John, of course. That's why they were best friends. "I will. I promise," Barry said instead, and he meant it. He'd had more than enough adventures for one day. No, scratch that. For one lifetime. As he climbed from the patrol car and watched it speed away, Barry had never felt so glad to be home. Every muscle in his body screamed in pain from his swim through the bay and his narrow escape.
Take that.
Is it over there?
No.
Well, we better go find it. From Captain Hook. His clothes were still sopping wet and growing stiff from salt. "I'll even be happy to see Rita," he thought with an incredulous smile as he headed for the front door.